The family in today's story is so gifted that their previous traumas and demons was the only things that could keep them from reaching their full potential. This is the second best family group in Motown's history, and today I'm going to tell you a story about the DeBarges. Before we get started in today's video, please be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and push that notification bell to stay up to date. Now without further ado, let's cue that intro. This story begins with Robert Louis DeBarge, who was of French and English descent, who was served in the military during the Korean War. In 1952, he would relocate to Michigan, where he would meet Erdeline Albany, who was then 16 years old. DeBarge, he was 21 when the couple were married in 1953, and Albany, she was 17. Now, despite the fact that interracial relationship, especially marriage, was frowned upon, the two, they would still get married even though Albany was just 17.
When I got into this marriage, I knew nothing. I didn't know how to be a wife, or a mother, because I was just a kid.
The couple would eventually settle in a predominantly black neighborhood in Detroit. Bunny, Bobby, Tommy, Randy, Marty, Elle, James, Chico, and the twins, Peaches and Young, will be the couple's 10 children. The family encountered several issues while living in Detroit as a result of being mixed race.
We always tried to fit in. We tried so hard to look black, to be accepted black, to talk black. Nobody would accept us. It always got thrown in our face that, you're half white.
I think we were very embarrassed of my mother and father's relationship, more so of my father, because we were with the black people and Daddy sticks out. He doesn't clap like we clap. He doesn't move like we move.
Robert, he would get a job as a truck driver, but once with his job discovered that he was married to a black woman, he was fired. They had a significant influence on Robert, which he would take out on his wife.
Daddy wasn't working. When he landed a truck driver job, he was fired from it because he was married to a black woman. And I remember them coming and picking our furniture up. He had just bought furniture, new furniture and everything, and they came and picked our furniture up because Daddy had lost his job.
Now, Miss DeBarge, she alleges that Robert physically and mentally abused her by keeping her pregnant. In addition, he was quite insecure and didn't want his wife to appear attractive. He would tell her to never wear jewelry, makeup, or anything that would catch another man's attention. He would even demand the names of the males that approached her.
He was just a very mean man, very angry man.
Yeah, I remember things, sleepless nights, hearing my mother cry. But she was a praying mother, and I admire that in her.
I can remember coming home from school and the back door on the floor where my dad had just busted the door in because my mom wouldn't let him in. My mom with a black eye holding ice over her eye where he had fought her.
As the couple began to have children, the abuse began to shift towards them. At least 5 of the 10 children was exposed to physical and sexual abuse from their father.
He abused Bobby and Tommy and Bunny the worst. I stay out of his way, but I remember he knocked me out one time. I locked my brother in the bathroom, and my mother was telling Bob, don't you hit him, hit me. And he said, move out the way, Eileen, move out the way, and he, bam.
We never saw any repercussions. If the police were called, I think because he was a white man and she was a black woman.
Their father would have the kids do chores while he would begin to molest Bunny. Bobby was the quietest and most sensitive, and it was believed that he was the mother's favorite, which drove the father insane because he felt that Bobby stole the attention of his wife. Out of all the children, it was said that Bobby, he got it the worst. But equally, they all suffered the same amount of abuse.
Bobby was beaten by him and mentally abused, emotionally abused by him.
My brother was never happy. He wanted to be loved. And seeing James as a baby, he didn't like James getting all the attention. So he used to torture James because of that.
Yeah, it's true. I was my dad's pick. I remember having more toys. I got more attention. I got more love. I paid a dear price for it. Wally would beat me. He was always trying to kill me.
Bunny, she remembered years of sexual, emotional, mental, and physical abuse from their father, claiming that he began abusing her when she was 7 years old.
It started when I was 7 and it went on until I was around 13. I held that secret for the longest, and Bobby, being under me, was able to see that something was going on. We learned at a very early age that we couldn't trust Mama because Mama was afraid of Daddy too.
Bunny, she blames the siblings' shortcomings and troubles due to a difficult childhood, which led to them consuming drugs and committing crimes. Any of these accusations made by any of the DeBarges will be ultimately denied by Robert Sr. To deal with what was going on at home, they will begin experimenting with drugs, and Bobby, he was the first to do so, starting at the age of 15. In 1972, the family, they were relocated to Grand Rapids, Michigan. Mama DeBarge's brother was a pastor of the church that the family was going to. Mama DeBarge and Robert Sr., they would get divorced in 1974. Music was always a constant activity in the DeBarge's home. All of the children were highly skilled. Now, they didn't know how to read music, but they would learn how to play it by ear. And for the siblings, music served them as an escape from reality.
We were so tight-knit, and we were going through so much. We would be at home sometimes. I remember this. Bunny and them would back you up, because Bunny started it. We would harmonize around the house.
We sing when we were sad. We sing when we were happy. We wrote little songs together. Hallelujah, Jesus, buckle my shoe. Mama, Mama, Daddy, Daddy. We started writing very young. They were little silly songs, but we had our own little melodies.
I taught my children to sing because my father taught me how to sing, along with my other brothers and sisters when we were young.
Bobby, he began singing with his friend Gregory Williams after graduating Ottawa Hills High School in 1972. Performing in bars and anywhere they could, the duo, they will continue to do this until 1973, where they will get an opportunity presented by Barry White that they couldn't pass up. Gregory and Bobby, they would relocate to Phoenix, Arizona in order to acquire the gig, and they would recruit Jody Sims, and they would be known as White Heat.
A dear friend of mine called me up and he said, we got a deal on the table with Barry White. Do you want to come and join?
So Greg and Bobby moved to Phoenix, Arizona to secure a gig for the soul legend side project, White Heat. There they met a fellow recruit, percussionist Jody Sims.
White, he would produce their self-entitled album, which was released in 1975. Once this album flopped, they was dropped by White's label, and they would go on to create another album titled Pall Mall Groove that was released in 1977. Now Bobby would return back home after the failure of this album, when his drug addiction would only get worse. While Bobby was away, Williams and Jody, they would relocate to Akron, Ohio, where they would begin touring the funk scene. Bobby's younger brother Tommy would join the group at this time. MC Clark, Eddie Flutigan, Philip Ingram, who was the brother of James Ingram, and Arnett Hayes made up the remainder of Williams' group. Now the group would go on to Los Angeles, which at this time had served as Motown's headquarters. The band only had one cassette, which they would send to Jermaine Jackson, who actually liked it and wanted to book them for a gig to try them out. Williams knew that Bobby was the key to their success, but because he was on drugs, some of the members didn't want him to join, while others knew they needed Bobby. By this point, DeBarge, he had decided that he wanted to relaunch his music career, and Williams, he would phone Bobby to let him know what was going on, and Bobby vowed to quit using, and he would travel to LA where the band was still the show, especially when Bobby would switch from singing to playing the piano. In fact, they would all switch to one instrument to another. Susan DeBarge would comment on the group saying that she never seen so many switches before and really enjoyed them. And actually, this is how they earned their name Switch.
We were in the Motown building and we were trying to get a record deal. We had one cassette.
We took our one tape having butts, got on the elevator. Who gets in but Jermaine Jackson and his wife Hazel Gordy, Berry Gordy's daughter. They agreed to hear the tape. Jermaine called us the next day. I heard the tape. I like you guys. What do you want to do? Well, we want a deal.
Jermaine wanted to have a showcase.
Well, as we're talking back and forth, letting the guys know what this is happening, couldn't reach Arnie. Finally, Arnie answered the phone and told me that he couldn't come.
I said, well, listen, what do you think about we just pull Bobby back up in here?
Philip and I were like dead set against it. I mean, who cares what's going to happen in the future if we already have a problem to start, you know?
There's an old saying, the juice ain't worth the squeeze, right? Well, in Bobby's case, the juice was worth the squeeze. There was no doubt that if Bobby was there, we would get the record deal. So we're on stage, and here's this moment. We got to prove ourselves. And I just remember playing and switching up.
Bobby sang and played keyboards. Then he's over here on the percussion. Philip sang and on the percussion, and then he goes, plays the bass. Tommy gets off his bass while he's singing and run over to the keyboard. We blew them away. After the show, Suzanne DeBarge makes the statement, "I've never seen so much switching in my life."
That's how we got our name.
The band would immediately be signed to Motown, and they would begin working on their self-titled album, which was released on June 17, 1978. This album had reached the top position of number 37 on the Billboard 200 charts and number 6 on the Billboard Top Soul LP charts. Jermaine Jackson, he would produce this album, which contained one hit single with There'll Never Be.
Since we are lying here.
This album also had another popular single titled I Want to Be Closer.
Many days have gone by.
The next year, the band, they would strike gold with their second album titled Switch 2, which peaked at number 37 on the Billboard 200 charts and number 8 on the Billboard Top R&B album charts. This album had 2 hit singles with Best Beat in Town
With harmonies and R&Bs, you won't stop.
and I'll Call Your Name.
I'm not worried about a doggone thing. I take anything you bring.
At this point, Switch had established itself as a record and performing draw thanks to Bobby's versatile range and as well as the band's overall ability. The band, they would achieve gold once more in 1980 with the release of This Is My Dream. This album would peak at number 21 on the Billboard Top R&B album charts and number 85 on the Billboard 200 charts. This album was the only album during the band's time with Motown that wasn't produced by Jermaine Jackson. In fact, this album was produced by members of the group. This album had gave us 2 successful singles with You and I,
You and I, you and I, you and I, you and I.
and Love Over and Over Again.
You brighten up my life.
Bobby began using heroin and cocaine after years of sobriety. His drug usage started to cause a friction within the band. But by this time, the band's 5th album was already complete with Switch 5, which was released in 1981 and peaked at 174 on the Billboard 200 charts and number 48 on the Billboard Top R&B albums charts. This album would give us 2 hit singles with I Do Love You and Call On Me.
When your sun don't shine.
Once Switch 5 was released, Motown extended an offer to Bobby for a solo contract. This contract was officially signed in 1983, but by then, Motown had teamed him and Tommy up with the rest of their siblings to produce them. Elle and Bunny, they would leave the group, but Motown also offered them a solo deal, and this time in 1987. And as Elle and Bunny left, Bobby, he would make the decision to concentrate on his solo career. Nevertheless, he would have difficulties in trying to make this solo album, which was ultimately caused his solo career to prematurely fail. Bobby would lock that door for the time being and join his siblings in revamping DeBarge. Bobby's career came to a halt in 1988 when he was convicted of drug trafficking with his younger brother Chico in Grand Rapids. Bobby and Chico were sentenced to 5 years in jail.
Then, in the summer of 1988, Bobby hit rock bottom. He and his brother Chico were arrested on drug trafficking charges and later sentenced to 6 years in federal prison.
Bobby would contract AIDS during the late 80s, and no one knows whether he caught it through reusing needles for drugs or while he was in jail. While battling AIDS, he would relaunch his solo career and complete his first and final solo album titled It's Not Over.
For Bobby DeBarge, there was no out. While still incarcerated, he was diagnosed HIV positive.
So during the 80s, Bobby and LaToya Jackson was dating. And actually, Bobby wrote the song You and I, which was about Jackson, and it was a response to her song Nighttime Lover. In 1984, the couple, they would break up, and Bobby would move on with Terry, who he would have 2 children with. Now, it's widely believed that Bobby was bisexual, and when he was incarcerated, he would act on his desires. This led to the rumor that he contracted AIDS while he was incarcerated. Bobby, he will sadly pass away on August 16th, 1995 at the age of 39 for complications of AIDS.
2 years after his release in August of 1995, Bobby DeBarge died of AIDS complications spurred by a heroin addiction. He was 39 years old.
TV One aired a movie about Bobby's life in 2019. Now the movie wasn't horrible. The story was fantastic, but it was just the performance and the casting that made the movie average. But the Bobby DeBarge story is far superior than the Aaliyah movie. While brothers Bobby and Tommy was off having success, siblings Elle, Randy, Mark, and Bunny was brought to California where they was mentored by their brothers Bobby and Tommy, also the family friend Gregory. By 1980, the DeBarges was officially established.
The younger DeBarges had once followed their big brothers Bobby and Tommy to California to pursue their musical dreams. Now they began to mimic their bad habits as well.
At the time, Bobby, he was gaining a lot of success with a lot more opportunities. Elle, he was able to perform live with the band playing piano, which really went well. Eventually, he would do the same for Berry Gordy, who was very impressed and agreed to sign the siblings. In the beginning years, the DeBarges, they would provide background vocals for Switch, but once when Bobby got a solo offer from Motown, he would leave and begin producing his siblings' material. Now Bobby, Bunny, and Elle, they would produce the group's debut album. Now although this album didn't have any hit singles, it did have a very popular song titled What's Your Name?
What's your name? Please tell me.
After this album had failed, they would decide to add their little brother James and cousin Cameron to the band. They would begin working on their second album, which was released as All This Love. This album peaked at number 24 on the Billboard 200 charts and number 3 on the Billboard Top R&B Albums charts, also selling over 500,000 copies, going certified gold. This album had 3 hit singles with Stop Don't Tease Me,
So baby, you got to know.
I Like It, and All This Love.
I had some problems.
In 1983, they would make a huge impression on the world during the broadcasting of Motown 25. That same year, they would release a third album titled In a Special Way, which peaked at number 36 on the Billboard 200 charts, number 4 on the Billboard Top R&B Albums charts, also selling over 500,000 copies, going certified gold. This album would give us 2 hit singles with Time Will Reveal,
Fulfill me of my dream. Time.
and Love Me in a Special Way.
You knew you had me with your
The group began to see a lot of success after being handpicked by Luther Vandross to open up for him for his tour in 1983. In 1985, they would release a single for Berry Gordy's The Last Dragon film, and this single will be known as Rhythm of the Night. In 1986, Elle and Bunny that was offered their own solo deals by Motown. Now, without the powerful harmonies of Elle and Bunny, the rest of the DeBarges that was not considered commercial enough for Motown, so they was released in 1986. That next year, Bobby, he would join the group, but he was unsuccessful in his efforts to secure the group a record deal. But they would ultimately sign a contract with an independent record company titled Stripe Horse Records. They would release a final album titled Bad Boys, which would fail to chart. Now, even still, the label had lacked the resources to promote the album. Since it was so small, the album would still score 2 hit singles with Dance All Night and I Got You Babe. DeBarge's career continued to flourish as they hired their younger brother Chico in 1988. Chico and Bobby that was caught for drug trafficking and sentenced to 5 years in jail, causing the group to split up in 1989. Switch and the DeBarges are 2 iconic bands who gave us many beautiful tunes. These bands would gain so much popularity that many popular artists would sample their songs, including the notorious B.I.G. single, One More Chance.
First things first, I pop them, freaks all the honeys, dummies, Playboy bunnies.
Mary J. Blige would cover the DeBarge single, Share My World. Tupac singles, I Ain't Mad At Ya.
Now we was once 2 niggas of the same kind, quick to holler at a hoochie with the same line.
Backstreets, Don't Leave Me.
You've got your problem, baby, and I got mine.
Ashanti, Foolish.
See, my days are cold without you, but I'm hurting while I'm here.
Mariah Carey, I'll Be Loving You. And Rich Boy, Throw Some D's, among many more.
Rich boy, silly, quick, folk niggas wanna check shit tight, no stick.
Bunny launched her only solo project titled In Love in 1986, but due to Motown's aim to promote only the singers that really bought significant amount of money, also focusing on the entertainment business, her record will underperform due to the lack of promotion. She is well known for her hit Save the Best For Me in addition to her time with DeBarge. Bunny is currently a gospel artist who records independently. After the DeBarge split, James hasn't really had any solo success. His work with the DeBarge and his 1984 marriage to Janet Jackson is what made him most famous. Due to DeBarge's substance abuse issues and Jackson's parents' displeasure in their marriage, that was annulled in 1985.
James DeBarge had a surprise of his own. That same year, at age 20, he quietly eloped with his 18-year-old girlfriend, Janet Jackson.
I was in the store. I looked over and on one of the magazines, there's James and Janet, and it was like they were married. And I'm like, what?
In fact, James was living in the Jackson estate at the time of their marriage.
I was there because, according to their mother, that's what she was most comfortable with. We're gonna be together.
But James and Janet's marriage was annulled less than a year later.
I don't believe that anyone would be able to say that drugs didn't play a part in their breakup. But it was a series of events, of a series of things that a lot of them are private, that took place between me and her, and that hurt us both. It was the right love at the wrong time.
When Chico's solo album was released in 1986, he was just 18 years old. The album would reach its top positions, peaking at number 90 on the Billboard 200 charts and number 25 on the Billboard Top R&B Albums charts. Chico, he was deemed to be the DeBarge's new star after the release of his debut album. His career would take off with singles such as Talk to Me, The Girl Next Door, I've Been Watching You, Rainy Night, and Kiss Serious. Like the other DeBarges, Chico, he would struggle with drugs and also serve time in prison.
In the years since Bobby's death, several members of the DeBarge family have struggled through recurring stints in prison, rehab, or both. After serving time in prison, Jonathan Chico DeBarge enjoyed pop success in the 90s as a solo artist with the hard-edged neo-soul album Long Time No See.
L, he saw success early in his career with the singles Who's Johnny, Love Always, and Someone, among many more hits. His career was put on hold during the 90s due to drug and personal issues. L thinks his drug addiction began when he started to get prescription drugs after having a tooth pulled.
L's solo career fizzled as he gradually succumbed to a familiar family curse.
El told me he had his little trip to the dentist and they gave him pills to make the pain go away, and he liked the way the pills felt, and that was the same high that his brothers were experiencing. He said that's how he started.
L, he would encounter the authorities on several occasions, first in 2001 when he was detained for drug possession, again in 2006 when he was detained for a controlled substance, 2008 he was arrested for having crack cocaine and possession of a controlled substance, followed by a 2007 arrest for domestic violence and cocaine possession. And just as of recently, in January 2023, he was arrested again for possession of drug paraphernalia. There aren't many families left where every member is very talented. The DeBarges are among the most gifted. They are unquestionably one of the greatest sibling groups of all time. L is the most well known and Chico had the most successful career. But when it comes down to sheer skill and voice, that was Bobby. The entire family might have reached never before seen heights. Hell, they might have even been greater than the Jacksons if it wasn't for their demons, which most of them are still fighting to this day.